Welcome to the third episode of Hooked and Roadbound, where we talk about jeeping, fishing, and epic adventures on the Texas coast. Today's episode is about fishing fails and wins, because let's be real, it happens. It's not all roses and butterflies. It is a lot of failing to get to that success. Being a beginner badass, that's what I want to call myself. It's full of laughs, struggles, and moments of glory. So here's fishing fails that I've had over the last 6 weeks since I've been kayak fishing on the coast of Texas. Because I've only been doing this for 6 weeks. Remember that. Like, I really don't know anything, but I started a podcast to talk about my jeeping successes, which I've been jeeping for a couple of years, but my fishing fails have been epic in the last 6 weeks. And I've had some major successes I've shared with you guys too. So the first one I want to tell you about, because the struggle is real with fishing, is the kayak dragging death march. Yes, a kayak dragging death march. I was all excited to go fishing in Redfish Bay for the first time ever. And I guess I could blame it on my fishing partner because that's really where he wanted to go. I really like Cowlitz Lakes, and you guys know this, but he wanted to go to Redfish Bay. So we go over to Redfish Bay, just right around the corner from Port Aransas. Lots of people will recognize Port Aransas instead of Aransas Pass. And it was the second time I'd taken out my kayak. My kayak is 90 pounds because it's a pedal kayak and a sup board all in one, with everything decked out so you can fish off of it. And went out so excited, but this narrow strait where you catch fish, we weren't really catching fish that day. So we thought we would round this island and the corner of the island. And we round the island and we noticed it went from, 2 foot to about a foot. And we're like, we're good. We can still, row. So I had to get my paddle out instead of pedals, and get my paddle out and kind of like a subboard paddle. And it was just one of those days where the tide says, not today, buddy, not today. So I launched feeling like a pro, fishing, skunking at that point. And so we decided to try a different fishing area. We're going to go under the bridge because we heard you could get sheephead off the piling. Now, we're wanting to catch reds, but it was seeming like they weren't catching. Around that corner, we're in 1 foot of water, then it goes to 8 inches of water, then it goes to 6 inches of water, and then it goes to about 2 inches of water. The tide said, not today, not today. So we could have turned around and went the other way, but we thought it's only going to be shallow for a little bit. Well, about a quarter of the mile, we had to drag the kayak. Now, thank goodness my partner took my kayak that was 90 pounds and I got his 35-pound kayak. And we got to drag it through marshy, sticky mud. And I had my boots on. I had my boots on that come up to my knees. And I thought I would be good. Nope. Nope. No, it was not good. I sunk to my thighs in black mud. No fun. Black mud. So a quarter of a mile, I get to drag my kayak through marshy, sticky, soul-sucking mud. And I was really proud of myself. I kept a good attitude. I didn't get real cranky, which my husband was really excited about because usually I get cranky when that kind of stuff happens. So that soul-sucking mud, we get out of it. We decide to go across to Lighthouse Lakes. We go right by the bridge. and the water was deep enough. And I ended up catching my personal best that day. I got 33 redfish that day after soul sucking mud. So the takeaway, the moral of the story is always check the tide. Tide charts are important and you need to pay attention to them unless you want to become a human tow truck at kayak fishing. And I understand why people don't get the pedal kayaks after the soul sucking mud. But I made it and I had my personal best and we had a great day fishing out that day. And I think it was in January when that happened. So always check your tides. Right now, the tides are super low. I just got off the water a little bit ago. I caught some trout this morning. The reds were like, no, you can't catch us today. They didn't like what I was putting in. So it was a lot of fun, but always check the tides. The tide is super low here. It's been low all winter, but it's lower than I've ever seen it. I actually had to get on my tiptoes to get on my step board to fish this morning because I was not driving my kayak out there. Now, there's another thing about the tide. Number two, a fishing fail. Tides can be like bathtub drains, and I'm the rubber duck. This past Sunday, I went fishing, and you would never think that the tide would work like a bathtub. It'll fill up like a bathtub, and it will drain like a bathtub with you sitting there the entire time. It fills up slow, but bam, it can take it out very, very quickly. It yanks out kind of sometimes like somebody pulled the plug. And that's when the tide's going out. And when the tide's coming in, it could be a nightmare. And then there's slack tide also. So I'm learning about these tides over the last 6 weeks. And 1 minute you could be floating and casting and enjoying the redfish that you're catching. And then all of a sudden, it just sucks it all out. I don't know where it goes, where the tide goes, and why it comes in and why it comes out. It has something to do with the moon and the gravitational pull of the earth. But I don't know when the tide goes out. Where does it go? Does it go to China and the tide goes in? I don't know. I'm trying to figure this stuff out. But that's the one curious question Christy has is, where does the tide go when it goes out? It's got to go somewhere. And why does it go in so quickly? Why does it go out so quickly? 1 minute, I'm floating like a champ, catching redfish. The next, I'm a beached whale in my monster of a kayak that's 90 pounds. Like, it is just insane. No water, no fish, just me in my kayak, enjoying the day, wondering where the tide goes. The burning realization of how I need to pay attention to the tide. That is so important, to pay attention to the tide when you're fishing on the Gulf of America, which is connected to Lighthouse Lakes or Redfish Bay, wherever you are on the ocean. You need to pay attention to the tides. Very important. Now, I'm a country girl. I'm from Missouri. I fished on things like the Strip Pits and Stockton Lake, and there were some other rivers that we fished on. You never once had to consider the tide. Now, the takeaway is tides are unpredictable, my friends. So if you're coming to the coast of Texas, pay attention to the tides. There's simple little apps that you can put on your phone. I have them on my phone. I've had them on my phone for years. But I just didn't think I needed to pay attention to them. So take the unpredictable, my friend, and they'll pick you up if you are stranded. You can just pick up that kayak and go. So I really should have paid attention in science class. I don't know that they ever talked about the tides and fishing at the same time, though, that you could have put that together. They really need to work that into high school curriculum. I think it's something important that everyone that wants to vacation should know, especially if they like fishing. Now, the third fishing fail that I've had recently is the Stingray panic attack. I had some Steve Irwin flashbacks. I was catching nothing one day. And so I thought instead of using my studio, sorry, guys, marker 54, I want to call him Studio 54 Sherbets, but my marker 54, not Studio 54 Sherbets, the redfish just weren't biting. So I decided to use some cut bait. I used some dead shrimp cut up and just decided to put it on my line and hook and throw it out and just let it sit. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to listen to a book because the fish just aren't biting much today. It was kind of chilly, a little bit windy. So I thought, well, the redfish aren't jumping right now. So catching a stingray is fine until your brain reminds you about Steve Irwin. And I'm in the generation that I was very traumatized when Steve Irwin died because we love Steve Irwin. Steve Irwin was our guy that told us about animals on TV. Just totally loved him. And we were devastated when he was killed by a stingray. And that's all I could think. When I hook something big, I'm thinking, oh, I got this one. But it's a little bit weird because it seemed like it was digging in the mud. And I'm like, what is it doing? What kind of fish is this that it's just going down in the mud? And then all of a sudden, this brown diamond-shaped head comes to the surface. And I realize I've got a stingray. I didn't even know you can catch those. I caught fish. I had no idea you could catch a stingray. And all I could think about is how this thing's plotting its revenge towards me. I didn't have my pliers that day, and I almost tip over my kayak. As I pull it to the surface, I realize it's a stingray. I let out a scream, which then my fishing partner and also husband comes over to me quickly, and I yell, I've got a stingray. And I'm questioning my life choices. Why am I fishing and there's a stingray at the bottom? So my husband comes over. He takes off the stingray as it's trying to like barb him. I guess that's what it's called. Thank God it didn't get him. He did it with class, and he took the stingray off and he brought it over to me so I could take a quick look at it. It's really cute. It looks kind of like a flounder on the bottom with a smiley face. And then on the top, it's kind of rough looking. So the takeaway is lesson learned. They're not out to get you. I'm going to still respect the hell out of stingray. It's fun to catch, but terrifying because of what happened to Steve Irwin. God rest his soul. Number 4, paying for privilege and catching nothing. Done it, been there. So I decided to splurge and get a guide who's famous on YouTube. Well, he's famous to me. I thought he was like a god of redfish fishing. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to pay for this so I can take, compressed time. Instead of me going out there and failing over and over again, I really wanted to catch a bull red. I'm going to pay somebody to go out and go redfish fishing, even though I've caught hundreds of redfish. And you pay for help, you'll learn, right? And you'll take in compressed time. Instead of it taking decades, it could take weeks. And that's why I studied this guy's YouTube channel. Totally loved him. Like, every redfish I've caught is because of this guy. Every fish I've caught is because of this guy. My personal bests are because of this guy. So I thought I'll pay him as a guide, and I'll take decades and put it into days. Right? Right? It's good rationale, right? You would think that it would work. Nope. 6 hours of perfect fishing weather. Not even a nibble. Not even a bait thief. Not even a pinfish. Nothing. The guy's looking at me. I'm looking at him. I'm going, have you ever had a guided trip where you haven't caught anything? No, I've never had a trip. No. And we're just both like, you want to talk about your feelings? Because there was no fish happening. Now, one thing I did learn from that fishing fail, I should stick to my tried and true bait, plastics that I usually use. I did not. I used what he was comfortable with, and he tried to teach me a different way to reel in with this different lure, and it just didn't mesh with me. And finally, my husband came out to me, and he goes, "What the hell are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm listening to this guy. He told me to do, really didn't know that." And he goes, "Don't do that. Just do what you've been doing." I thought it was something I was doing. No, because I've caught a big red right after that trip. I was trying to put too much focus and concentrate on it. I should have just done what I usually did. I would have caught the reds all day long that day. And when you go out fishing with a guide, one of the things you really need to ask them is, what's your style of fishing? I have the style of fishing. I like to relax. I like to back my kayak up somewhere where there's fish activity, because I believe 90% of the fish are in 10% of the water. And I like to casual, non-stressful fish all day long. That's what I like to do. Enjoy fishing. I don't look at it like a basketball game. We go here, we go there, we go here, we go there. Not my style of fishing at all. So it really threw me off. So I wasted a whole fishing day by paying a guide to catch no fish. But I did learn some stuff. Now, my husband caught a couple of reds, not really any keepers. But the takeaway is, sometimes you need to learn that guides aren't magicians and fish don't take bribes. This is a way that I learned the hard way by giving him my cold hard cash and getting absolutely nothing. I could have did that on my own. My partner and I do have our next podcast is a flow guide, and how to hire a guide that really meshes with what you do, because his way of fishing is totally different than my way of fishing. Now, I've had some fishing wins. If I'm going to talk about all those fishing fails, I want to tell you about my fishing wins in the last 6 weeks. That day that I had that fishing fail, the kayak dragging death march, I had my personal best. I caught 33 redfish. Sometimes the stars align and the fish just can't resist what you have. You just got to get out of the marsh, and quit pulling your kayak and doing the death march. So I caught 33 redfish in one day. I totally smashed what my husband did that day. I think he did 21. I was basically running a redfish daycare. And I sent them back to mama when I was done. It was cast, hook, reel, repeat. My arm was ready to retire by that 33rd fish, and my tackle box was an absolute disaster. And I was grinning like a fat kid with his candy on Christmas Day. The takeaway is, days like this are days that we can fail and then deal with those fails when we have those epic wins. Thank God that happened on all one day, because if I would have had the kayak death march, I don't know that I would have wanted to go and make it my mission to catch redfish, but on that day, it was. So I'll take the death march for a quarter of a mile so that I can have that nonstop redfish action. One of my other wins that I've had in the last 6 weeks is I done hundreds of redfish. So in the last 6 weeks, I've caught about 200 redfish, about 5 trout, 2 stingrays, a spider crab, and 3 blue crabs. So, and a couple of pinfish, but some of them I don't even know if I can count them as catching because they were like almost minnows. I actually threw one out as bait just to see if it would work. So, it's like catching redfish 9 to 5. I'd be the CEO. Over 100 redfish in my first month, and the addiction was real. When I caught those redfish, I knew this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to fish. So I started a podcast. I started a YouTube channel. I started a TikTok. I've got a Facebook page. I have a website coming. Am I selling anything? No. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, but it's going to be something fun. I do have a little Etsy shop where I sell some female fishing gear, that fishing t-shirts that are kind of fun. But I was addicted. It was real. If I caught fish to keep them, my refrigerator would be full. But I like to catch and release. I dream about redfish now. I wake up and I look at the weather and I look at my weather channel and the tide chart to see if it's a good day to go out fishing. I haven't missed more than just a couple of days of fishing, and that's been just due to weather. So practice and patience really pays off, and being out on the water as much as possible makes all of the difference. Yesterday, I was out all day long fishing and I was totally skunked. I don't know why, but today I go out there for an hour and a half and I catch 5 trout. So you learn something new every time that you go out. It is a hoot. It is a lot of fun. The biggest win from the last 6 weeks of fishing, kayak fishing, is you realize you never stop learning. I learn something every day. Like today when I cast it out, I was casting around some docks and piers. And of course, there's one piece of cloth on this pier. And you know where my lure went? Right there. So I lost one of my favorite lures. I'm going to have to go over to Roy's and get some more. You never start learning. Every trip out, there's something to learn. I pick up something new. Today, I tried sight fishing, and I'm not really good at sight fishing because I'm only 6 weeks in, and I scared the redfish. It was flat out there. So I've learned that when it is flat, you have to be really careful around the reds because you will spook them. That's one thing that I learned today, and to watch for cloth on docks and try not to cast that far out. So you learn something new every day. Every trip, something new, how reds react in the different temperatures, the different waters. Since I've been fishing in the last 6 weeks, we've went from 60-degree water to 40-degree water, and now we're back up to about 55-degree water. And the reds act totally different every single day. And some of those honey holes that I go to all the time don't produce reds like they did just a few weeks ago. I don't know why. I'm trying to figure out their pattern so that I can get a big red every time that I go out. That's my goal. So it's really fun. Now, the one that's eluded me still to this day, I haven't caught a flounder. My husband has caught several flounder when we went out fishing. I haven't caught any, so I also want to catch a monster flounder. So the wrap up is fishing is an adventure, a lesson, and a comedy show all in one. Whether you're dragging your kayak through the mud or you're reeling in 33 reds in just a few hours, by the way, it's all a part of the journey. Now, questions for my listeners out there. What's been your biggest fishing fail? Drop it in the comments or DM me on any of our forms of social media. Now, if you're loving these stories, definitely follow my podcast, Hooked and Roadbound. You can also follow me on Facebook under Badass Jeep Gypsies, our TikTok shop, which is, man, I'd love to plug it, but I can't, Sunkissed and Hooked. Or on TikTok, where we've got over 7,000 followers now, just in the last few weeks, at Badass Jeep Gypsies. Now on YouTube, I am under Jeep Gypsies. And definitely check out the Etsy shop, Sunkissed and Hooked. And if there's anything you'd like to see kind of pop up, let me know. You guys, thanks for joining me for the 3rd episode of Hooked and Roadbound. I can't wait to see you guys soon.